In the Jewish calendar, on the 15th of Shevat, which falls this year on January the 28th, Jews around the world will celebrate the holiday of Tu B'Shavat, the new year for trees. It used to be an agricultural holiday in which farmers used to make sure they paid their taxes on time. It's now a moment to reflect on our relationship with the planet and nature at large. It's customary to eat 7 different fruits on the day of Tu B'Shavat, but today we'll put in focus the benefits of wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives and dates. And to explain a little bit more about this before I introduce the rest of the panel, Nehama Uzan, she's the Program Director of the European Jewish Community Centre. Nehama, tell us about this festival.
Well, as you said, Brian, this festival is indeed an a farmer's festival. And since we're not farmers anymore, but we go to the supermarket to get our fruits and vegetables, it is a time really to think a little bit inwards. And what I'd like to propose to you, Brian, and to all our guests today is later on to go through every single fruit and try to sink into the spiritual journey inward that these fruits could bring.
Okay, this isn't a cooking show, unfortunately, today, so we won't get to taste everything. Also with us today is Bert-Jan Ruissen. He's a Dutch member of the European Parliament. Great to have you with us, sir. He sits on the European Parliament's Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development, and before being elected to the Parliament, he worked as an advisor for the EU agriculture policy at the Ministry of Agriculture, Nature and Food Quality in the Netherlands. We also have with us a nutritionist, Gisele, who's based just outside Brussels as well. Great to have you with us too. Gisele, you're going to tell us a bit about the nutritional value of these different fruits we just mentioned.
Yes. So what is important to know for Tu B'Shvat is not about the 7 fruits, but it's about the thing is that our relationship with the food is so important, because nowadays, as you can see, there are a lot of processed food, and it takes a lot of things, and it takes out of the good macro and micronutrient. So our DNA is made to have natural food like the trees are giving us. So we have talking about these 7 fruits is wheat, barley, figs, grape, pomegranate, olive and date. And what is in common of these fruits is the color. It's colorful diet, and this colorful diet is antioxidant. What is an antioxidant? Is each pigment is an antioxidant. So these antioxidants are produced by the plants to protect themselves from the sun. We are not able to make it, so we need to eat from the fruits and vegetables. So all these antioxidants coming from all the colors from the food, from all these fruits. So coming from white, yellow, orange, pink, red, purple, green. So all these colors are antioxidant. That's why we need to eat all of them. So what is very interesting is the polyphenols. Polyphenols are improved. They are a kind of antioxidants. That's important to know. And they're interesting for digestion, for the weight, when we have a problem of weight, diabetes, protective effects, cardiovascular disease, and against the aging. So what is in common with all polyphenols is the anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and it stimulates the immunity. So antioxidants are like vitamin C and vitamin E, carotenoid, that protect our body. This is very important. That's why we need to eat them. Let's talk about wheat and barley. They are not very fruit, but cereals, but they are interesting in macronutrient and micronutrient. Macronutrient are lipids and proteins and carbs, and wheat is interesting in proteins. And they have a lot of it has a lot of micronutrients like magnesium, zinc, selenium, which are also very interesting for our immunity. Barley is interesting too because it helps for what is intestinal health, interesting for diabetes, low cholesterol. So all these are very interesting. Let's talk about grape now. Grape is interesting also because it have a kind of polyphenol which is called resveratrol that we can find in the red wine. So, but that's not why we need to drink too much. Of course, you find it in the grape, and it's full of magnesium, vitamin K, B, C. So it's very interesting too. The fig, we can compare fig to the date, which is full of micronutrients like magnesium, iron, fiber. We need some fiber, vitamin B. And why I always speak about vitamins is, don't forget that vitamin is destroyed by the temperature when you cook. So raw food is interesting and cooked food is interesting too, but it destroyed. Pomegranate is also interesting because it has a very interesting polyphenol. So it's good for antioxidant. And we have in this pomegranate vitamin C, vitamin B9, which is very important too, vitamin B6, and a kind of a little bit of iron, copper, magnesium, which is very interesting also because we are really stressed in this world. And of course, as more you get stressed, as more you use your magnesium. Olive is very interesting because we are making this, processing them to have olive oil, and olive oil is omega-9, which is very important for our cells, and it's against inflammation too. So olives are full of vitamin E, copper, so very interesting. It's low calories, but it's very important, even if you use it as you press like olive oil or you eat them like that. And for just the last but not least is the date. It's what we are going to have, like a small sweet. It's like we're going to use to make honey, and it's also against interesting for protein, calcium, vitamin C. So it's always the same. It's because all these fruits are interesting for us. Even if it's macronutrient and micronutrient, for all they can get us and what we can absorb to them. So, well, this is a little...
Okay. We'll come back in just a moment, Gisele. Before we talk to Nehama about the spiritual relevance of these during the Jewish holiday, Bert-Jan, the quality of European food, you work a lot on the farm to fork strategy as well, which, most Europeans, they look at food in the context of fuel, not in terms of refueling themselves, not in terms of the quality of the food for their health as well. Is there more to be done on the health side in terms of the farm to fork strategy, where farmers are seen as benefactors of our health because of the quality of the produce that we're getting?
Oh yes, I think there's a lot of we can do on that also in working on awareness, how important it is to eat healthy food, and it's really great to see that everything we need as humans is already in the nature, and that's also, I think, also the main message of the festival of To Which You What, that food is not coming from a factory. It's not made by us, by people. In the end, it was from the beginning created by the Almighty. And what we have to do as people is, well, to respect your nature and to develop new varieties, for example. But it's really great to see that everything we need as people is already in the fruits, for example, the nutrients and the vitamins and so on.
So
it's amazing, really amazing.
Our ambition should be to keep it closer to the natural state and not to poison ourselves with overly complicated production.
Yes, I think stewardship is I think, the big issue. We have to take care of the nature. We have to develop the crops. I think introduction of innovation in that respect is also really important. But we may not forget that the basic is coming from nature, and that we have to stay as close as possible to the basic elements of the nature.
Okay, thank you. Nehama, when Moses took the people out of Egypt, there was some complaining about the fact that they missed their garlic and things like that as well. Tell us about the spiritual significance of the food in the context of the festival.
Brian, that was excellent. Well, listen, To Which What is really a time in which we reflect on these fruits, and we try to think what is it that they can bring us, not only as nutrients, which is so important. And thank you so much, Gisele, for giving us so many elements, but also maybe these fruits and vegetables speak to us and have a message for us. So, for example, I got myself some figs and some dates already. Thank you so much, Gisele. I'm ready to eat them and feel so strong about it. But what I'd like to suggest, Brian, today is really to try to reflect on thinking, what is it that the wheat, the barley, the grapes, the fig, the pomegranate, the olive, and the date have to tell us? And what the Kabbalah, the more esoteric explanation of the Bible tells us is that actually they have a message for us. So the wheat and the barley are both, they are cereals, right? And they are staples. They are staples. The wheat is the staple of mankind. 75% of men eat wheat somehow, and besides for the gluten-free, right? But that's another issue. And barley is the staple for animals. If you need to feed your animals, most probably you'll take barley. And the message that these two cereals are giving us is that we have within us very strong powers. And one is the power of our body, but more bodily instincts, which really keeps us alive. The fact that when I'm thirsty, I drink, and when I'm hungry, I eat, actually feeds my body, right? So these instincts are very beneficial for our bodies. But at the same time, we have another voice inside us, which is our spiritual voice, let's say. And that's a little bit the food of the mankind. So we have a little bit of bean and barley, I was saying, wheat and barley inside us, those two forces. And the spiritual element of these two cereals are teaching us that we hear these voices in us, and we sometimes might think that we are in duality inside us. We have to, let's say, feed one and starve the other, or feed the other and starve the one. Either we have to be more spiritual or we have to be more materialistic beings, but we can't really be both at the same time. And what grape brings us, which is the third fruit, a grape represents joy and harmony. What grape is teaching us is actually that we need to make these two forces into friends. We cannot decide that we will be only spiritual and just denigrate our body part, or we'll just be very materialistic being and we will not feed our spiritual being. But it's just when the two voices are together that we're actually bringing harmony and joy. And if I can use that image, which is a very cute image, is that if these two forces were in a car, my body parts and my spiritual parts, well, my spiritual part should be the one driving the car and giving me direction, a sense of direction. But my body part should actually be the fuel that will give me the energy and the passion and the fire to keep going. And that's when we actually feed those parts and we embrace those two parts of ourselves, that we can really become a grape and bring the harmony and the joy. Now we have two more fruits coming, which are the figs and the pomegranate. And I take these two together because if you look inside these fruits, they are completely opposite. The fig is integration. You have one piece of fig and you have the whole fig, right? But the pomegranate is exactly isolation. Okay, every single seed is divided one from the other, which is exactly the opposite of the fig. Well, what the fig is teaching me is integration of our beliefs and action. It's a little bit that capacity we could have into aligning thought, speech, and action. We all know that sometimes we can think something, say something else, and do again something else. So we're completely not aligned. And what the fig is teaching us is that we need to actually align all these parts of ourselves to live really inwards, happily, and in peace. Then you'll tell me, then why do we have the pomegranate? The pomegranate is exactly the opposite. It's isolation. It's one seed separated by a membrane from another one and from another one. And what the pomegranate teaches me is that, yes, I might want to be perfect. I might want to be completely integrated and completely aligned. Those are good wishes, but sometimes it's just not doable. And sometimes we have to take each action at a time. Yes, I'm not good in everything, but I can be good in something. And I have to really work on myself in taking one action at a time and perfecting that specific action, just like the pomegranate. And then we have our two last fruits, which are the olive and the date. Now we know very well that if we pick an olive from the tree, it's bitter. We cannot just, eat it because it just doesn't taste like anything. But the more you squeeze the olive, and the more you get its delicious oil. And Gisele just explained to us how this oil is so beneficial and so delicious. Now, what you all know that sentence, right? What doesn't kill you makes you strong. we all go through challenges, difficult moments in our lives, which are like just like the bitter olive, and you just don't want to eat it because it's so awful. But you do know that when you press and press and press stronger, delicious, amazing oil comes out of it. So don't be afraid of those difficult moments in your life, because maybe something beautiful can come out of it. And just concentrate on the opportunities that this time can give you, instead of just concentrating in the bitterness. And you know what comes after? Date. Date is honey. It's sweet. It's just delicious. Gisele forget to tell us not to eat too many of them, because we might be gaining 500 kilos. Date is just so good. But just like a date tree, right? Date tree takes so many years to grow and to give you good date. Well, to be able to taste that honey, you really need to have these times of reflecting into your inner self and your outer self, the wheat and the body that you have within you. You need time to really integrate them both into a joyful moment, like the grape is giving you harmony. And then sometimes you're going to be fig, sometimes you're going to be pomegranate, because sometimes you're going to be integrating everything and completely online, and sometimes you will take each action at a time. And then comes the difficult moment, then comes the test. And remember that during these tests, you need to gain strength and really concentrate on it to try to draw the delicious olive oil. And only after that, you get the honey and you get the date.
Nehama, thank you. Europe needs to balance its food better. We face an obesity crisis. People consume almost through addiction at the moment. We need to be slower and more appreciative of what we eat, and more grateful for where it comes from as well. How do you see this in policy terms?
How do we see it in policy terms? Well, I think it's important to keep the farmer also in the center of our policy. Because the farmer he knows his farm, he knows how it works, he has experience with his crops and so on. So he knows what's possible and what's not possible. And it's also really important that to realize that a farmer needs enough income. So that's for me important, that we put the farmer in the center. But on the other hand, the whole food chain has to cooperate. And in the end, it is the consumer who decides which kind of food he will put on his table. So in the farm to fork strategy, it's also important that that the farmer, that the consumer, come in a good position, and that we work on awareness at the level of the consumer, that he makes the good choices in what kind of food he put on the table.
Gisele, what encourages people to make the right choice? What will encourage Europeans to rebalance their food habits in a way which will benefit their health?
We can see now the COVID is a good example. A lot of people have got problems because they have diabetes, they have other problems, health problems. If you eat properly and a regular good diet, you will have a better immunity. This is the first point. Even that, it's always difficult to be overweight and when you are just exhausted because you don't eat the good thing. If you eat well, you will have a good energy. You just wake up on the morning very happy. And as Nehama said, you just like more align, and you will find a good mood, and how can I say, a good balance in between your health, your weight, and your energy, and your mind, and everything is going to be perfect.
Thank you. Last word, Nehama, and then just a quick word to wrap up from the political side as well. And Nehama, for you, this festival is clearly a positive festival as well, and it starts with the farmer as well. What's your message to those as they go to the dinner table tonight?
Well, just to recognize and to be grateful. And there is a sentence, Brian, that says, happy people are not always grateful. Grateful people are always happy. And I think that we all strive for happiness today. Times are difficult. And maybe if we just look at our dinner table and say, wow, we've managed to get there and we've had such beautiful food that can feed our body, and remember that this food can also feed your soul. And remember that every single thing you have on the table, spiritually speaking, can help you into an inwards journey, into feeling happier. Because feeling happier, happiness, Brian, we all know that you cannot find it outside of you. You cannot only find it inside. And when we are confined at home, that's what we need to do.
Okay, thank you. And last word, Bert-Jan. European policy on food is almost always focused on the farmer, on the support, subsidies and tax. This is what makes the headlines. Would you like to see that change when people sit down at their dinner table in Europe every night? What should they be thinking about?
What should they be thinking about the food policy, agriculture policy? Well, I think there's a kind of a reform needed in the agricultural policy, and what we have to reward and to support is more sustainability in the agriculture. But coming back to the main to the festival of today, for me personally, the main message is that it is important to realize that we also in the agricultural policy we are working with creation. Everything in agriculture and nature is created from the beginning by our Creator, by the Almighty, and that gives reasons to be grateful, to be thankful about what's in the nature. And our responsibility is just to use the main elements in the nature for good and healthy food production.
Thank you very much. Happy Tuba Shabbat to all of you. Thank you, Nehama. And to Nehama, Gisele, and to Bert-Jan for your contributions this afternoon. Time to rebalance Europe's food tables and time to be more grateful for what's on our plate. Thank you.